Good morning. This is the first video for the unicorn. We're going to talk about the play. It's not a particularly long play in terms of the actions that happen with engagement, but there's quite a bit of provoking, quite a bit of build-up that happens in this one. So it sounds long, but the actual thing that we're doing against the opponent is not particularly complicated. But let's go ahead and take a look at the translation. So in the onset, come with your left foot forward and slash upward with the short edge from your right once, twice through his face, and the third time remain in the long point with your sword extended before you. Turn the long edge up towards your right so that your pommel comes through under your right arm and your hands come crosswise over one another. Go up thus with the crossed hands, thus you stand as I have said before concerning the unicorn. From there deliver 2 low cuts in a row, yet such that your left foot always remains in front. The first from your right, the second from your left, both of them upward right by your body, so that with the second low cut, your hands come back crosswise as before. Go this quickly back up into the unicorn. With this winging up, lift your left foot somewhat, but set it back down at once. With such conduct and appearances, you will provoke him to cut at your left opening. And when he cuts in, let your blade drop before you, and at the same time, pull your sword around your head, cut with the long edge across from your right against his incoming stroke with a step forward on the same foot, so that you catch his stroke from across on the forte of your blade. As soon as the swords clash together, then spring with your right foot further around towards his left and rapidly lift your sword a bit up from his blade, and as you go a bit upward, as I have said, then at the same time push your pommel through under your right arm so that your hands come crosswise, thus flick quickly behind his sword at his head with the inside flat or short edge as you step out towards his left, as can be seen in the small scene on the left in image C. With this, you open your left side. If he will rush at it, then simply pull your pommel back out from under your right arm and turn your sword into the long point so that the long edge stands turned against his blade. Thus you stand in the straight parrying as shown by the other small scene on the right in the same image C. So that sounds quite a bit, but a lot of this has to do with the build-up position. So really quickly to clarify the unicorn position, unicorn is just the natural endpoint of an upward cut. So if I've done an upward cut and I've kind of hit this natural extension point, if you look at me sideways, it kind of looks like my arm and sort of coming out of my forehead, so I look like a unicorn. And this is a good way to think of your natural endpoint when you're practicing any of the undercuts, because as I tell my students, if I haven't hit the bad guy from here, continuing to go is not really going to help me hit the bad guy, and it's just going to open things up. So when we're practicing cutting long, we want to practice cutting out. We don't really want to practice just cutting way up out of control. So that's a good kind of checkpoint when you're practicing your cuts in general, that we want to end in the unicorn and not straight up. And also sometimes people cut up into more like an ox position, but that does shorten your cuts quite a bit. So we really want to focus on cutting to this nice extended unicorn position. So in terms of the play, what he's telling us to do is with this left foot forward, we're going to throw these back edge rising cuts. So it's really important that we use the body to power it. This rising back edge cut, particularly from the right, is a little weaker anyway, so we really want to make sure we're having good body mechanics. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, and he says from here we pause in the long point, and then we turn our long edge up to the right. This is very reminiscent of an earlier video I did talking about the extended guard and the little wheel. So we're going to turn our long edge up, we're going to cut an undercut from the right and then the left, and we're going to do this with a pick up and put down of the lead foot. So this is a provoking action. So we've cleared the space, and now we want to provoke the opponent to come in and cut at us. When that cut happens, we're going to step forward around and we're going to counter cut, hopefully catching their cut onto our forte, so the strong of the sword. From there, this is different than duplier that we've seen in earlier manuals where there's pressure and we keep the sword on theirs when we turn. That's not what we're doing. Meyer tells us to pick up off the sword a little bit. So from here, I'm going to push my pommel under. I'm going to cut behind their sword at their head with the back edge. Because we are not keeping control of their blade, we've actually picked up to lift and cut. The sword's just kind of hanging out here, and there's a chance they're going to come back in on us. So he's telling us to be careful and make sure that we come back onto their sword with the long edge. So let me give you the mental shorthand really quick. Left foot forward, back edge slash 1, 2, 3 to long point, little wheel, double undercut, counter cut, lift and back edge, back down the long point. So there's a lot of build-up, a lot of kind of this pre-fencing activity. But anytime we end up in this unicorn position, this play is very applicable. So we could have just been in kind of a middle guard and thrown an undercut, and they backed out of range, and now they're coming in to hit us in this gap. Cut, back edge, back onto the sword. So you don't need to do this whole provoking setup, but it is a good set of body mechanics to practice and some good tactical things to practice. Clearing the line, provoking with attacks to get them to hit an opening you know will be created. So when I'm practicing this on the pelt, I have my left foot forward, and I practice slashing 1, 2, 3, double undercut, and I cut across. If my pel is my opponent and their sword's coming in, I want to make sure that I'm getting a nice strong bind onto their sword with my forte. So I actually do cut kind of across my pel, and that will allow me to push my pommel and raise my hands and hit with the back edge, and then I can just kind of unwind that to bring my long edge back onto their sword. So again, 1, 2, 3, across, back edge. One, 2, 3, double undercut, across, back edge, back. So one more time at the camera. 1, 2, 3, to long point, turn the little wheel, double undercut, countercut, back edge, back onto their sword. The next few videos are a little interesting because Meyer's going to give us some what ifs. So we're going to do this play, and then, or if the opponent does this, try this, or if the opponent tries this, do this thing in response. So that'll be kind of nice. These videos build on each other very